So we've talked about, the importance of profitability, but if we can perhaps talk about some of the sources of risks to contract profitability, SI and enterprise contract profitability, and perhaps again, if we can start off with you, James, before talking to Carl and Will. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to provide some thoughts here. So I think I touched on it earlier, right? I think the biggest source of risk, as I see it, is the ability to bridge that gap between the old environments and the new environments, or platforms, as I would see it. I think profitability comes with standardization and scale, and effectively being able to get as many of your customers onto a, cost-effective, scaled platform that drives real value, technology value for that customer, and ultimately drives business outcome and value for them. And so it's all well and good saying those things, but actually getting your customers in a position where they can move onto those platforms is very challenging. So for me, there needs to be some kind of bridge, some kind, a stopgap, or maybe actually a hybrid solution in the short term, so that you can create that pathway or roadmap to kind of a true modernization capability. So I think without doing this, number one, you're going to struggle to retain existing customers because you're not going to help them achieve those modernization objectives. You're not going to be creating and adding value for them. But then also you're going to struggle to acquire new customers. So again, if your technology stack is focused somewhere in the middle, or your capability is somewhere in the middle, those new and emerging organizations that want to be application first, want to be cloud first, etc., they want to benefit from the future, whatever AI brings to us in the future. You need something that's going to be able to support them as well. So yeah, I think for me it's bridging that technical, or it's solving that technical debt challenge really, and bridging between those legacy platforms and modern solutions.
Thanks very much, James. Perhaps Carl, over to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, networks age, right? I mean, there's a time when all system integrators had built or were building their own networks to support a customer base, and what we're really seeing that change. But yeah, as networks get older, there's a reinvestment. There's a whole bunch of hidden costs by operating your own network, and that just slowly erodes profitability over time. Prices increases, staffing, education, training, reinvestment, all of that sort of starts to hit that profitability, especially as people look at the original business case, which perhaps was on an established network, and then all of a sudden you got business churning, contracts ending, new contracts trying to start. But then you get customers' expectations, right? Expectations and requirements are changing. If we look at how fast AI has sort of stepped into our sort of vocabulary, and everyone's talking about it, and we're seeing the increase and the projected increase that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Julian, is exponential growth. And as a business, we'll come on to that in the next question, but all of these factors are sort of eroding the profitability of sort of owning operating platforms of the original business case. And there's a lot of sort of how do businesses and how do SIs sort of address that need, and we believe it's through partnership. People need to sort of understand really where their focus is as a business and what they're trying to achieve, and then partner with organizations that sort of complement that.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, just to build on what again Carl and James were saying, I think if you think about enterprises, many enterprises, right, their applications are their absolute heartbeat, right? And but the challenge is that many of them define that stack through the lens of IT services, and there's a huge, although that's absolutely fine, of course, there's a huge operational and potentially even a reputational risk from not even thinking about the underlying network or the underlying physical infrastructure. For me, it comes back to when I was growing up, my mum always used to tell me, you can't have your dessert until you had your greens, right? And I think connectivity here is a good example of, you've got to have those greens, that connectivity, before you can have your dessert. It can't be a second thought or even forgotten, because that creates those huge risks. And all tied around this is, you wouldn't have bad data policies. You would make sure you have governance and all the workflows in place. And because otherwise, if you don't have all of those elements and those underlying connectivity, then ultimately that big, sexy digital transformation project that you've bought into or sold, you could think of that as like a unicorn. That might actually turn out to be more like a donkey in a party hat, right? You have to get those fundamentals right, otherwise, you risk huge reputational risk and operational risk.
And I think Zayo has experience of working with SIs and large enterprise where their large enterprise was transforming into the cloud. They wanted to sort of move the application stack and move the whole IT ecosystem into multiple cloud platforms. They're working with 2 SIs to sort of get all of how to do that, get it all happening. They'd forgotten the network, and they sort of Zayo got brought in. There's a tender. Zayo sort of partnered, did some proof of concept, and really sort of built sort of the network fabric that connected multiple cloud ecosystems, call centers, everything together across our network, and sort of partner with people like Sienna to sort of really provide that infrastructure. So the network is something that requires focus, and it plays a critical part to sort of the operation of sort of the next generation of technologies and business applications.